That's the Mishnah. I'm Adam Chaveri, Nachash Imei, Va'anachash Imcha. You can do an exchange of services where each person is going to provide the same service to the other one, even though on the surface, and the truth is it really is the same thing as saw b'saw. It doesn't make a difference whether you're providing a commodity and then you're borrowing a commodity and then return the same thing. The price of the commodity can go up and down. The same thing is true as well of services. But the Maisa, we say it's allowed, or so nachashimi v'anachasha, you weed for me and I'll weed for you, ederimi v'eder imcha. But he can't say that he's allowed to do. But you can't do different types of works, because different types of work, we say we're concerned that one work might be harder than the other one. So the one who's doing the current work maybe is doing the easier work, and he's saying, you'll come back to me in 6 months and provide a more valuable work for me. Kol Yumei Grir Echad. So I'm trying to remember, what is taka the heter? Why can you do it? It's a chamu not masakin on work. We're generally assuming that every work that a person does is going to be essentially the same. But if they're different types of work, then we're worried about it. Kol Yumei Grid Echad. You may revia achas. And as far as exchanging work for work, it has to be in the same season. The whole winter is the same, and the whole summer is the same, and the whole winter is the same. You can't say, work for me in the summer, and I'll work for you in the winter. Now, one might think, the reason why someone might think that this is okay is because the biggest difference between the winter and the summer, obviously, is if you work for a day, with the normal unit of working is a day's work, a day in the summer is much longer than a day in the winter. The Mishnah is saying, even if the person who's waiting and getting the work done for him later, it's in the winter, and it's smaller amounts, you might think that's certainly okay. He's exchanging something now that's longer and more valuable for something less valuable. However, on the other hand, working during the winter is less pleasant than working in the summer. It's rainy and it's more difficult. So therefore, it still is not allowed, since they're not equal units. You could have ribbis that is given early and ribbis that's given late. Ketzah. Nasan Einav Lilvais, Hemenu. If Reuben intends to borrow from Shimon, and he sends him a gift, and he says he sends him a toaster, like the bank, and he says, come back in a week. I'm going to come to you in a week because I want to borrow money from you. Zui Ribbis Mukdemis. This is a ribbis that comes before the loan. Lava Hemenu, or Reuben borrowed from Shimon, and he returned the money, and afterwards he sends him the toaster. Reuben borrowed from Shimon, he already returned the money, and he gives it afterwards. I'm giving this to you because you gave me a loan. Zui Ribbis Mucharis. That's Ribbis Mucharis. I think all of this, like we said before, would be okay with the Talmud Chacham, it seems. The Talmud Chacham, he really means it just as a matana. On a Talmud Chacham, we said you could even do it at the same time, at the time of the loan. It just, but he's saying, I'm giving it. He said, I'm giving it to you because you did a loan for me. Yeah, so the Mishnah said.
So how's that affecting the loan?
It's not affecting the loan, but he's paying him interest on the loan. He's saying straight out, I'm giving this as interest. These are two business acquaintances, right?
So is it for a second loan? Is that what it's for?
No, I'm rewarding you. I'm giving you a present. I'm appreciative of what you did, and therefore I'm giving you a present.
$100. I'm looking at the Sarah of this.
It's not. You're looking at it that is it an inducement
Right.
to lend? But the truth is, the borrower is also chayiv for paying ribbis. It's not.
It's halacha.
It's
Yeah.
the act of lending a ribbis is also, even if you never actually give them money, if they both change their minds, and you never end up giving. Once you make an agreement to lend them ribbis, that's also ribbis.
It can also be looked at as an inducement for future loans as well, if you'd
Well,
like.
that's what I'm trying to avoid. Menachem suggested.
I know I'm saying it can be either one.
But that's not the
right.
issue here. It's the issue of ribbis even if he never makes another loan.
You're right.
It's like if it makes you feel better to look at it that way, that's fine. But it's like wearing shatnez. Once you do it, you do it. It doesn't have to be a benefit. Reb Shimon yesh ribbis dvarim. Not only is ribbis to pay money or give a toaster, maybe ribbis saying something. If Reuven borrowed money from Shimon, he can't tell Shimon, I have a good business deal. This guy came from here. I'm letting you in on some insider information. And you can go do a deal with this other guy. That's also ribbis. These are the ones who are over and aloisase for lending with ribbis. Hamalva, the lender, Haloiva, and the borrower, for Arev, the guarantor, for Adam, and the Adam. The Adam on such a loan. So it's not, the Adam have nothing to do with it, but they're facilitating the loan. Chum say even the cipher is going to be chayv, even though what the cipher does is just writing a piece of paper. So one might say, just writing the cipher, the loan, the document on its own until it's signed and delivered is not, it doesn't mean anything. So what are they over on? Over mishum leisitain, the over for es kasem leisit loy benashech ubamarbes leitit nachlecha. Umishum altikach meitai. That's the pasuk altikach meitai neshech. The tarbes v'yireitzim lekecha. And leisia loy kenoisa. You shouldn't impose on him as someone who's pressing him for money. Umishum v'loisusim love neshech. And because of the pasuk, if you lend your friend as ani imcha leitia loy kenoisha, you shouldn't be an oppressor. And and you shouldn't put on him a burden of ribbis. And it's lefneiver by providing the loan, you're causing the borrower to be over on the ribbis.
And the lender.
So we'll see. I'm saying the lender. The Gemara is going to say it depends. Depends on the lender as well. The lender is facilitating. The Adam is going to be more of a question. We'll see in the Gemara. Okay, just 1 second. I'm going to turn on the air. Got it? Thank you. You're also hot? Okay. Skinny guy. Look, Gemara. Tanya, Shimon ben Yochai Aimer. Minayin l'noisa b'chavei mana ve'enu raga l'haktim lo'ishalom. This is taking it to a real extreme. If you have somebody you know, and normally you don't say hello to him. That if you lent money if you borrowed money from someone, you can't all of a sudden start saying hello to the guy. It's almost impossible to understand how this works. I mean, I know there are people that I've lent money to, and they're friendlier to me. It means they come over to me at Simchas. Mostly it's because they don't pay it back and they feel awkward, so therefore but I can't even understand how this would work, that you don't treat the person more differently. Even the dibur is awesome. The elu over, we said who this is who are over Rabaya Malva over Bekulan. The lender is over on over and all them. Leiva over Mishum Leisashech Lachicha. The last one, you shouldn't give to your friend neshech. So the borrower is not chayav for the things where you're imposing a loan or pressing. He's not pressing, he's the one who's being pressed, but he is the one he's over on paying the ones that refer to paying ribbis. He's over for lifnei iver like you asked. Orava Edim, Ein Ivrim Elam Mishum Lois Tashiman of Neshach. They're only on over on the one that says the second pasuk Kesef Tavas Ami is Ani Imcha Lesia Leikanosha Leisashiman of Neshach. You shouldn't put on him Neshach. So they're not. That's not talking about directly imposing, pressing the person for money, and it's not talking about paying money, but it is talking about that it's facilitating. You shouldn't make a loan that includes riba. So that will include even the Arav and the Eidim.
And are either not Mechuyev and
Now continue.
Okay.
I think it is. Yeah, we're going to get to Lava Lefnei. I think it's going to get to Lefnei Iber. No, maybe not. Maybe it's a Taisus. Let's see. All right. Right, it's Taisus. Taisus says, "Arav Eidim ein over elam mishum bas Shimon zimin da avinami elf neiver lesita michshol gunshloy haya malva b'li Arav Eidim." It's only if it's necessary for the loan, then they're over on lifnei iver. But if the person would have lent the money even without them, then they're not over lifnei iver. Aval lois Shimon psikolei. Aval lifnei iver zimin b'loy avik gunshloy haya malva loy b'lav hachi keicha the moishit koishel yain lenazer. The rule of Lifnei Iber is only if it wouldn't have happened without what this person contributed. Okay. We're on Ayin Hey Amid base in the middle. We're talking about Tanya. It's a new thing. Tanya, Shimon about a little less, a little more, like 10 lines after the Gemara starts. Those who lend with ribbis, they lose more than they gain. They make Moshe Rabbeinu to be a chacham and his Torah to be emes. This is a euphemism. It's a lashon saginar. It's a lashon that means the exact opposite. It's as if they're denying the Chas v'Shalom Moshe Rabbeinu and the Torah. It's as if they're saying that the only reason why the Torah asks is ribbis is because they don't understand how good it is. If the if you don't understand that the whole financial markets can't work and the capitalism can't work without finance, without ribbis, avada the Torah would not have asked it. So that's a way that people make themselves feel better about lending with ribbis to another yid. But the truth is, it's aser, and it's really api curses to say such a thing. How do we know that someone who lends to his chaver a mana, and he knows that he doesn't have what to pay back? If he can't make himself present, he can't, present himself to his borrower to remind him that he owes him money. You shouldn't oppress him. You shouldn't press someone for money who doesn't have. It's as if he put two punishments on him. You put a person, l'rashenu means to oppress him, and you put him through fire and water. So when you push someone to pay money that he doesn't have, it's as if you're putting through trials of fire and water. Anyone who has money, and he lends it without Edom. It's a terrible thing to do. As we've seen before, we've seen a lot of Gemaras that when you lend money, a person will often convince himself, he'll deny the money, which is obviously a lie. He'll make it even a shua, because he says, in the meantime, I don't have money. When I'll have money, I'll pay. But in the meantime, I want just to push it off. So I'm going to deny it. But if you lend it with Edom, he's not going to deny it. So because of your laziness and your lack of foresight, you're being over lifnei iver. It's very interesting, right? We just saw in Taisus that it's only if it wouldn't have happened without it. So saying this is a proximate cause. If you lend without Edom, you're pretty much sure that your borrower is not going to come through. Rish Lakish Amar, sorry? Rish Lakish Amar, Gairim Klal Atzim, he causes a klal on himself. Shenema Ta'almeno Sifsei Sheker, should quiet the lips that speak falseness. Hadebris al Tzadik atik, that speak about someone who's a tzaddik, meaning that when a person lends without Edom, and then the guy denies it. Reuven borrowed money from Shimon, and there was no Edom, and now Reuven's denying the loan. Everyone's going to say Shimon was a liar, that he told Reuven that he owes him money. So you're going to cause people are going to be curse Shimon for asking Reuven for money that's not his, even though he really does deserve it. Amalei Rabbanan Rashi, Kamakaim Rabina Kol Ma Amar Rabbanan. Rashi says Rabina was Makayim everything that the Chacham said. He sent him right before Shabbos. Said, I'm in a big rush. It's Erev Shabbos, and I found this deal. I could buy a small amount of land, and I need 10 zuzim to borrow. A small amount of money. Shalachle, and Ravina answered him, Nesi Mar Sahadi v'nichtav. You should get Edom and write a star. Ravina was makbid on what we just said, that anyone who lends money without Edom, without a star, is causing problems. He said to him, even me? Ravashi said, you know me, you know I'm good for the money. You have to have a star and you have to have Edom. What are you making such a fuss about? Certainly you. The Tard Begirsa. You're busy with learning. Mishtali Begarim Kolatzmi. You're going to forget that you owe me the money. I'll come to ask you for the money, and you'll forget because you're so busy with your learning. It's the worst thing. Then if I don't have Edom and a star, it's more likely that it's going to cause a problem. So you see that even though it's uncomfortable, when you lend money, you should insist on a star, and you should have it signed with Edom. You're not doing any favors by handing over cash, unless you have in mind that it should be tzedakah. Taner Rabban, Shloisha Tzayikin Be'einanenim. There are three that call out and they're not answered because they caused the problem for themselves. Someone who has money, and he lends without money, like we just said, he's causing a klal on himself and the favor. The Gemara is going to explain what that means. And someone whose wife tells him what to do. That's self-explanatory, and it's, in my opinion, very similar to the last one. What is Kaina Adam Latz? My Mahi. Ikad Army, talking about someone who, when people come to ask him for money for tzedakah, he says, it's not my money. I'm just invested. I'm a small investor. It's really all Warren Buffett's, and I don't have anything. Someone who gives over his money to his children. It's a common suggestion with estate planning, right? People want to qualify for Medicare or Medicaid, whatever it is. So they'll put everything in a trust. But some people just say, I'll write over the house to my kids, and then I'll qualify. And then, 5 years later, they have no income, and then they're going to their kids and ask them for money, and the kids say, we spent it all. So this is also, you're causing yourself problems. Another person is someone who's stuck. He's stuck he's not successful in one town. He's living in New York City, and he can't make a go of it. And he refuses to go out. He should really go to Florida, try Boca Raton. But he's stuck in his thing, and he just keeps on banging his head against the wall. So it's, again, he's causing the problem for himself. Congratulations, it's a very geschmacka parak. I really enjoyed it. Now we have another geschmacka parak. It's going to require a little bit of focus. Someone who hires workers. The Gemara is going to have many, many different shittas about what behitu zeh who is someone, one fooled the other. The person who hired the omen fooled him. The only thing that they have against each other is complaints, but there's no monetary compensation. We'll see in the Gemara what the case is. If he hired a donkey driver or a wagon driver, lehevi priprin to bring the wood, bechililim or flutes, lekala, for a chasana. He hired someone that's very time sensitive. She's making a chasana, so she needs these things for her chasana. Elamesa for obviously for a kvura. They used to also use. They used to. I don't know what they used the flutes for, but they used it for something for the mace. And it's once the mace is buried, they have to bury the mace, and it's too late. So again, time sensitive. Pilin lahalis pishtani min hamisho. He hired workers to take out the piston from soaking. If you leave it too long, it's going to get ruined. B'chol davar she'avad, or anything that's going to be a loss if it's not done on time. And the workers reneged on their agreement. They said they were going to show up, and they didn't. So Zakdamar Malcolm Shein Shamadam. If it's a place that there's no, right, there's no opportunity. You don't have a Home Depot. You can easily just replace these workers with another one for the same amount of money. You can instead, even though you can't get someone from Home Depot, you could go on what is it called? I forgot the name of the app. There's an app that you can get somebody to help you, and you get you pay a premium for getting someone expensive. You know the app I'm talking about? What's it called? Handy something. Anyway, so you're going to pay double the price to get someone to replace. You can't get the cheap labor that you had originally hired. So you get the expensive guy, and then you go back to the laborer who had failed to show up, and you say you have to pay the extra over what I had to pay. Or you can fool them. The Gemara is going to explain. It means in some way of inducing the worker to show up for work even after he reneged, by lying to him essentially. Someone who hired a worker, and they were chayzer on him. They
so that the worker.
Which one? Yeah.
He's hired to this job because
they didn't show up to set up the chasana. You hire someone for double for an extra 50%, and then the worker that didn't show up has to pay the extra 50%. You said you were supposed to. Then Soicher Aleim means that you hire the Rashi Soicher Aleim bnei Adam biyoyka Aleim l'shalom. Rashi right in the middle. That's what Soicher Aleim means. They hire on their responsibility. A matan is a different thing. We'll see later on. Now another case. Then you hire. Then you hire another person to replace it. It's your problem. Go ahead. Whatever. What would you lose? It's the same thing. If someone hired workers and those workers, now we're talking about a slightly different case. They walked out of the job by lunchtime. They worked half a day and then they stopped. Yadam ala tachtainim. The worker's hand is on bottom. Rashi explains, essentially, during the day, sometimes the price changes in the middle of the day. So if in the middle of the day, he has to hire someone else to take over. So like Rashi. Let's say he had made up, I'm paying you $10 for the day. And in the middle of the day, and they worked half a day, and now he goes to hire someone for the second half of the day, and the price has gone up, and now it costs him, it's $12 per day, so $6 for half a day. So what he'll do is he'll just pay $4 to the original worker and take the other dollar and use that to add for the second worker, so they get their $6, which is really the same thing like the din we had said before. But if it's the other way around, what if it was $10 originally, and now it's $8 at the end of the day? Then the boss can say, I'm only paying you $4. Since you backed out in the middle, I'm going to only give you the small amount, and I'm going to take another $4 to pay the worker for the second half of the day. I'm going to keep the other $2 because you're yada al tachtayna. If you leave in the middle of the day, you have to accept the lower amount of what a worker costs. In Balabayas Chayzaboy, or the other way around, what if the Balabayas fires him from the job in the middle? Yad al tachtayna, the same thing is going to be like that. He's going to, if he has to give them according to what they did. And Zot Rashi, Yitnlam lefi mashasu v'im chuzlo malachas pailim, and if the value of what it costs of pailim goes down, Yitnlam kamasha patik, he has to pay them according to what he said. He still has to pay them 5. Let's say he said, I'm hiring you for the date of $10, and now it's only going to cost me $4 for this boss. He fired them in the middle. He was a tough guy, right? He thought he was going to be smart. He said, oh, I paid them $10, and now I can get workers for $8. So I'll fire them in the middle of the day. I'll only pay them, let's say even they're 5, and I'll pay for 4 for the second half, and I'll save $1. But then it's not like that. He has to give them $6. They're going to make a profit on it because they're going to say, listen, you only have to pay $4. You agreed to pay us 10. You only paid 4 to finish off the job, so you have to give the other 6 to us. This is another din. Anyone who changes from what he was told to do, Rashi explains, for example, someone who's given something to dye red and he dyed it black, the worker who changed it, he's going to get the lesser of either the improvement to the chaypitz, let's say by improving it, by doing it black instead of red, it would have been only worth $10 black, and now it's worth $15. He only gets this worker is only going to get what he expended. If he spends $5 improving it or $4, he gets 4. If it goes up only $3 instead of $5, then he's going to get only the amount that went up in value. Whichever is less, can get either the expenses or the improvement that he made, since he didn't follow the instructions of the employer. His yadei al tachtain. Whoever is chayzer is yadei al tachtain. Sounds like we've said this already in 3 different forms already in the Mishnah. The Gemara is going to explain what this is answering, what this is adding. So the Gemara. The Mishnah had not said, it said rather, so the Gemara is going to have many explanations of what this hitozeh is referring to. This is the first end of the Mishnah, right? Let's not get obscured with all the different cases we said afterwards. The Mishnah went through a lot of different permutations. But the first thing we said, if they fooled one another, or one fooled the other, they only have a taina, they have complaints, but they don't get money. So what's that case? So the Gemara starts, like Tani doesn't say chazru, eli tozeh, said they misled. The atu paylamadad. The Gemara takes from that a mashmayis that we're not talking about like the rest of the Mishnah is talking about with a boss and a worker, but rather it's 2 workers that fooled each other. Hey chidam, what does that mean? The Gemara is going to explain. We're talking about a boss and a hiring agent or a worker. It will often happen. You go to the Home Depot and you say, I'm looking for guys to sheetrock or to do some framing, and they'll say, Jose, you know anyone else who could work? So you went to Jose, and it's obviously we're talking about Jews here, but Jose says, yeah, I know Carlos and I know Diego. So you have a hiring worker, and then you have the workers that the subcontractors, the people that he hired. So it's like tomorrow. Hechi dami, the amale bal habayis. Bal habayis said to this hiring agent, Zil oigel li payal. We'll make it. He said to Reuben, go hire for me workers. He didn't give him money. He said it to him. He said, I need workers. Va'adali, when Reuben went, va'ad inu, and he misled the actual workers. So what is this case where we're saying that it's only going to be tarumas, there's not going to be money? If the balabayas said, I'm willing to pay $4 an hour, or $4 for the day, and then Reuven went to Shimon, and he said that the original boss, Yaakov, was willing to pay 3 tarumas mayavite, sava v'kabel. Since it's okay, so Reuven should have told him 4, but he didn't, and now Shimon agreed to 3. So Yaakov should be very happy that he was able to get for cheaper. But these workers agreed to work for 3. Right? The Reuven told them 3, and they showed up at the job, and they said they were ready to work for 3. So why would they even have tarumas? The Gemara later on will say they have a taina on Reuven that he caused them to lose money. Reuven was offering the original Yaakov was offering 4. Had you said 4, we would have gotten 4. So we're going to see from a pasuk that withholding information that would have helped them is tarumas. The Gemara is saying that there's no tarumas because they didn't really lose. They agreed to take 3. And if it's the other way around, that Yaakov had said 3, and Reuben went and said to Shimon that Yaakov is willing to pay 4. What's the case? If Reuben, when he went to Shimon, said, I'm going to pay you, don't worry, you're working for me, and I'm going to pay you 4. In that case, he's not responsible. So there's no room for tarumas because Shimon is not going to get 4. Because Shimon's going to get 4 because Reuben took upon himself. He's going to have to add 1 to what Yaakov is willing to pay. The Tanya. How do we know that? If someone hires, in this case, like let's say Shimon or Reuben hired Shimon to work for him, and then he shows him Yaakov's field. The person who hired him, he said, I'm paying you. He has to pay the full amount that he agreed to. Then he can go back and get from the balabais that which the balabais benefited from having these workers. So over here, that's exactly the case over here. Reuven hired Shimon on behalf of Reuven. All he could get from Reuven is what Reuven was neda. Reuven said, I'm going to pay 3. So he only has to pay 3, and the rest Reuven has to pay. Yaakov, I'm sorry, only agreed to pay 3. So Reuven has to pay the extra 1 that Shimon received. So again, how do we have the case of where it's just tarumas? We're talking about in a Hanami where the last case where the balabais said 3 and Reuven, who is the hiring agent, said 4. And he said to them, Scharcha al balabais. And he said to these workers, you're going to get paid balabais. So in that case, they're going to be stuck with 3, even though they thought they were agreeing to 4. The Gemara of Alexi Pailam Hechi Miskari. It says, why don't we look? Why are they having tarumas on Reuben? Let's see how much do Pailam get. If Pailam Taka, the going rate for a laborer at Home Depot is 3, even though this guy promised 4, but Lamaisa he didn't have authority to do it. He said Reuben's hiring for 4. They show up there, and Reuben says, "No, I'm sorry, it's only 3." If that's the going rate, what have they lost? They're working there; they want to work, so they're getting a job. So this guy misled them, but if they would have worked for someone else, they would have gotten the same 3. So what's the problem? Some people hire for 4, and some people hire for 3. They're going to say to him, listen, right now we can't take from Reuven. We have he never promised 4, so we don't have a right to get 4 from him. Had you not set us up and we wouldn't shown up for work early in the morning by Reuven, we could have gone and looked around and waited till we found someone willing to pay for 4. But you took away from us that opportunity. That's why we have tarumas. Or you could say, we're not talking about a regular laborer. It's not somebody who's showing up at the Home Depot. It's a guy who really he's a contractor. And he would have gone and done his regular work. If you wouldn't have told me I could get this premium amount, I could earn more working as a laborer, even though it's not the typical amount that they pay. I never would have gone to work. I would have stuck with my regular shopkeeper's work. It's easier work or it's more lucrative work, whatever the case may be. But he was induced to forego what he normally would have done because of this promise. So even though now he's getting paid the normal amount for a laborer, this guy is not a laborer. He only became a laborer because of the promise of a higher wage. Or Or we could say, no, it's not the case. We're not talking about the previous answer. We're talking about regular laborers that only get the regular wage. The Amalek, even the Amalek Lamba Arba, and they're saying to him, the problem is we went and we did the job, and then at the end of the job we said, "Where's our $4?" And the guy said, "Well, I only promised 3." And we had worked the whole day. We said we're getting paid as fancy laborers, so we did an extra special job. We worked harder to earn that money. So why don't we just check their work? If they said that they did extra work, they did painting or they were digging. Let's see if they dug an extra deep ditch because they were getting paid as a superior ditch digger. We're talking about a ditch. So the ditch, it's not so easy to tell whether it was done better or not. So come on, Rivka, Nami made the yada. You can still let's measure it, see how deep the ditch is. The Mali Maya, below Yadia. We're talking about the ditch is already full of water. It's an irrigation ditch, and you can't tell if it's a deeper ditch or not. There's no way to check it. So the guy is being left with only his $3, even though he put in $4 worth of work.
The Bava is not considered a lie. He said 4.
Not the Balabais. No, the Balabais said 3, and the hiring guy said 4.
The imagery guy. So in the hiring guy, it's not required to cover the extras.
So we're saying that we're talking about where he said the Balabais is going to pay you, and they showed up there, and the Balabais said it's at the end of the day he said it's only 3, and they're laborers. They would have anyway only gotten 3 at the job. So even though this guy told them 4, they're because it's a commodity. You're a Home Depot laborer. You have no expectation of making more than your $10 an hour or $15 an hour. This guy happened to offer you 20, but you would have, if not for this guy, you would have worked for 15. So you were sitting there waiting.
There's no responsibility from the hire.
Saying it wouldn't even be tarumas, not even a taina on it, because you're not any worse off. What have you lost? You got a job. It used to be a time when people were just happy they got a job.
No, there has to be some sort of a veer for misleading someone. No,
so we'll see. We're going to see in a minute. We're going to say it's a pasuk, but pashtus, if there's no harm, no foul. If you would, 99% of the time, at the Home Depot you get $15 an hour. Every once in a while, one Meshugana will come and say $20, but you're not depending on that. So if this guy wouldn't have come, then you would have been a regular $15 an hour guy. So the Gemara. The Balabais had actually said 4. And he went and said 3. You'll say that they agreed to 3, right? We're being closer on what we had said before. We said that until now we've been talking about where the Balabais said 3 and he said 4. Now we're going the other way around. The Balabais said 4 and he lowered it to 3. And with the Ka'amrit Sava Kabul, they agreed to 3. So how could they have tinus that the Balabais had originally said more? The Amrilay less al timnam toiv mi ba'alav. You shouldn't keep something. You shouldn't keep away something good from someone. So you had the opportunity to make 4, and you unilaterally decided you're going to do a favor to the Balabais and make it 3. And now we're stuck with the 3 because we agreed to 3. That's al timna. So this is really, I kept on saying it's the pasuk, but this pasuk really is the other way around. It's just in the case of where the Balabais had agreed to 4 and the hiring agent said 3. The case of where the Balabais said 3, which is what Menachem was just asking about, and the person induced them to come for 4, I guess the bottom line is there's no tarumas on that because the guy is getting the standard amount. So how could you complain if you're getting paid the mandated union wage? Just because you thought you were offered a bonus, you were offered a a windfall. That's not that it never existed. That windfall was a chimera, it was a mirage. So you didn't do anything. You didn't hurt it. Usually is.
Right. It's what the hiring guys. It's smart business. The hiring guys.
You're not getting anything out of it.
Pruta, Azuz.
Who said he got his us? No, he's not getting
Oh,
paid.
he's not even involved.
No,
He's the middleman.
just a jerk.
The Bava gives him 4 zuz, and he gives the worker 3. He keeps this for himself.
Yeah, it could be, the way it normally works in front of Home Depot is he's one of the workers. He says, I'll get my buddies.
Right.
And he gets his buddies, but he lied to them. Okay, we're going to stop over here because this is a little complicated. The next thing.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with misleading, basically, what we're saying.
Thank
There's
you.
nothing wrong with misleading if there's no harm done with